So in this video, we're going to talk about naming covalent compounds. All right. And we're going to kind of quickly go through some of the schemes, the scheme in itself and how to name it. Now, when it comes to naming covalent compounds, the big thing here is it's all about prefixes. All right. And so we're just going to quickly kind of go through the prefixes. And so when we jump into the naming, we know what we're talking about. So what I mean by prefixes, we use prefixes with covalent compounds that helps us to tell us how many of each of the atoms are within the compound. All right. And so if we have one, we use mono. If it's two, we use di. 3, tri. 4, tetra. 5, penta. 6, hexa. 7, hepta. 8, octa. 9, nona. And 10, deca. So these are the prefixes are used, okay? And so what do I mean by that? Okay, so like for example, let's just start with one that we all know. So we have something like CO2. So this is a covalent compound, right? Two nonmetals bonded together. Okay, what is the name of this? Well, we know that CO2, the name of CO2 is carbon dioxide. Okay, so let's go ahead and just kind of break this down. So when we look at the first element is usually written as is. All right, the first element, how do we know which one's the first element? Typically is the one that's written first. So if you want, chemically speaking, it's the one that has the lowest electronegativity of the two atoms. Okay, carbon has a lower electronegativity of oxygen, so carbon is written first. Okay, so we typically write the name as is. Now, if there is a subscript, we'll use the prefix. Now, in this case, because the subscript here is 1, and this is only true with the first element, we never use the prefix mono. Never for the first element if the prefix is 1. If it's 1, we just simply ignore it and just write the element. Now, the second one, all right, because the subscript is 2, we use the prefix di, okay? And then we always change the suffix or the ending of the second element to "ide", always. So here, instead of oxygen, we have oxide. Since we have 2 of them, it's dioxide. So in this case, it's carbon dioxide. All right, here's another example. If we have C and O, so we have a carbon and an oxygen. What's the name of this? Well, we'll name it carbon, since there's only one carbon. Carbon, there's one oxygen, so we use the monoxide. All right, and I'm sure you guys heard of carbon monoxide before. All right, so this is the name, right? So here it tells us we only have one carbon. Mono tells you only have one oxygen, and then we always use the prefix "ide". Okay, so let's just go through a couple examples of this. So what if we have like N2O5? Okay, well, N2, there's 2 of them, so we use the prefix di. The first element, you just write it as is, dinitrogen. All right, and our second element has the prefix 5, which is penta. All right, and then we have oxygen, and so it's oxide. So, all right, so it's dinitrogen pentoxide. Okay, another kind of little tidbit, just language purposes. Typically, if you have an element that starts with a vowel like oxygen, and then you using a prefix that ends with an A, like penta or tetra or hexa, we actually take out that A. All right, so like in this case, it's not pentaoxide, it's pentoxide. All right, or if you have like tetra, so it's not tetraoxide, it's tetroxide. So stuff like that, just the nitty bitty stuff. Anyways, moving on. So look at another example. We have BBr3. Okay, so we have one boron, so we just simply call it boron here. Remember, we never use mono for the first element. And then we have 3 bromine, so we use the prefix tri, so it's tribromide. All right, boron tribromide. All right, let's go through more examples. Let's say we have SO3, right? We only have one S, so it's just sulfur. All right. When we have 3 oxygen, so we use tri, so trioxide. Okay. One more example. We have SF6. Okay. So in this case, we have S. Once again, just only one, so it's just sulfur. All right. And then we have 6 fluorine, so we use the prefix hexa, so hexafluoride. Okay, so that's the big thing about naming compounds. And then backwards is the same, just use the prefix, you know exactly what's the prefix, what number it stands for, and then you could just work backwards as for writing the chemical formula. Okay.